So a little while ago I was in the gym, and I know I don't look like I was in the gym, but you have to believe me. I was in the gym and I was doing some bench presses. Well, at least I wanted to do some bench presses, and I decided that I would do them on the Smith machine. Now, if you don't know what the Smith machine is, it's like it's got a bar across, and then it's got this frame around it which holds the bar on either side, so that you don't have to worry about the weights falling forward or backwards, and you can hook it on and have a bit of safety. And so I laid down on the bench, and I went under the Smith machine, and I put the weights on the side, and I took the weight, and I had this moment as I took the weight, this little thought kind of jumped into my head, which was like, these feel a little bit heavier than I'm used to. But I'm a guy, and so I did what all guys would do. I was just like, you know what, I'll just push it anyway. Do you know, and I'm a preacher as well, so I was like, you know, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This weight can't stop me. I was like, I'll still take it anyway. And so I took the weight and I brought it down, and I was like, yeah. And then I went to push it back up, and I was like, oh my days, like, this is really heavy, and my arms start shaking, and my chest is screaming at me. And I suddenly have this moment when I realize I can't push it up, and I am stuck, I'm trapped under this weight. And the problem was as well that I was in a Smith machine, which means that it was fastened on either side, so I couldn't even just roll it off myself. I was literally trapped under the weight. And there was this kind of two things going on in my head at the same time. On the one hand, I was desperate, and I was like, I really, really need some help right now. And at exactly the same time, I was like, please, Jesus, let no one walk in the room at this moment and see me like this, because I just felt like so ashamed and embarrassed. And fortunately, there was a gym instructor who happened to be walking through at that moment, and he saw me, and he came over with like one hand and just picked it up, and I was like, 99, and I'm done, thank you. And I never went back to the gym ever again because I was so devastated. But I think that a lot of us feel like this in life, that there's this weight that's bearing down on us, and it's heavy, and it's hard, and it's oppressive, and we can't get out. And on the one hand, we're desperate for someone to help us, and at the same time, we're terrified that someone might find out that we're struggling, and that we're not superhumans, and that we haven't got it all together. And so I want to talk into this today. I want to talk about depression, despair, and I think it's something that we haven't had enough honest, open conversations about in church, and yet in society it's crazy. Do you know that the depression is the single biggest killer of men under 40?
Wow.
It's not guns, it's not knives, it's not disease, it's not car crashes, it's depression. 1 in 4 of us will experience mental health difficulties. And yet when we experience it, especially us guys, we're ashamed, we're embarrassed, we don't want to get help, and what we do is we leave ourselves trapped for too long, and we suffer and we struggle and we don't get free. And I think it doesn't help that in the church we haven't really known how to talk about this. We mistake a mental problem for a spiritual problem, and we start throwing on baggage and saying, look, you just need to read your Bible, you just need to pray more, and you'll be all right. And then people who are already struggling feel shame, feel guilt, and it just gets worse and worse. And it's almost like we forget that in the Bible, the people who God uses the most, they seem to have these moments of high elation, and then the same people have these deep, dark moments of despair.
Yeah, it's true.
And so today I just want to share a story of someone in the Bible, and I want to zoom in on their experience. And my hope today is that this might be a light for you in your life.
Amen.
That if you're struggling, if you're suffering, that this could bring you a little bit of hope. Or maybe you've got someone around you who is finding this difficult, and that this might be a light that you can bring to them. So if you've got your Bible, turn with me to 1 Kings 19. If you've got the Soulcity app, all the notes are in there under sermons. And we're going to read the story of a guy called Elijah. I always get those two mixed up. Anyone else? Elijah, Elisha. It's unfair that that's such similar names. We're going to go for Elijah. And Elijah was just like, he was the don of prophets. He was just the absolute best prophet in the Old Testament. At his heyday, he has this moment where he's on the top of this mountain and he's facing off 950 other prophets. It's like 950 versus 1. And these are all like prophets of this pagan god. And he says to them, look, I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to fight this out. We're going to see whose God is really the most powerful here. And he gives them this challenge. And what he does, he says, we're going to get these 2 offerings and we're going to pray and God's going to bring the fire to burn the offering. And he says, you guys go first. And these 950 prophets start praying over this offering that their God would set it on fire, and nothing's happening, and they're getting more and more desperate, and so they start cutting themselves and they start bleeding everywhere because they believe that God will only respond to suffering, and nothing is happening. And Elijah, he's so cocky in this story. He is so arrogant. He's like, hey guys, what's happening? Like, I notice there's no fire. What's the matter? Maybe your God popped out to the loo. Like, he could be a bit indisposed. Maybe he's gone somewhere, or maybe he just doesn't exist. And he's so arrogant. 950 against 1. And he goes back to his offering and this fire and so this offering, and then he gets a bucket of water and he pours it on top of his just to make it even harder. And then he prays this super simple prayer, and fire comes down, and God is celebrated, and all of these prophets, they're actually put to death. And he's triumphed for Israel. He's triumphed for God. It is this pinnacle peak in his career, moment of everyone's cheering and they're celebrating, and it's amazing. And then we get to 1 Kings 19, and this is what it says happens next. When Ahab, the king, got home, he told Jezebel, his wife, everything Elijah had done, including the way he'd killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah: may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you, just as you killed them. Elijah was afraid and he fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and he left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I'm no better than my ancestors who have already died. Wow. Have you ever had a moment in life where you just pull away from everyone around you? You just withdraw and you start thinking these dark thoughts. And he's not the only one in the Old Testament to think suicidal thoughts. Job prayed that God would kill him. Moses said, God, just finish it. I've had enough. I don't even want to live anymore. He's experienced this deep depression. But what the crazy thing is if you were to look at the environmental factors around him, there would be none. There'd be absolutely none. He was right at the peak of his success. He was absolutely killing it. And what he's just defeated 950 prophets, and he has one woman who's coming and saying that she wants to kill him, and he falls apart. And the problem wasn't Jezebel's voice, it was the voice inside of him that it echoed with. This voice inside of him that was already telling him that he wasn't good enough. This voice inside of him that was telling him that it was never going to get any better. And he believed it. You see, the thing with depression is that it's not an external problem. It's an internal problem. And you need to know that success in life is not going to immunize you from depression. I think so many people, they're like, well, do you know what? You don't know what my life is like. You don't know what I'm struggling with. You don't know what's happening around me. If you lived my life, you would be feeling depressed as well. But you need to recognize that unless you learn how to deal with depression today in your life as it is, you will never be equipped to deal with it when success comes. Yeah. Elijah is having the best times, and yet he still feels this deep despair. You look at other people's lives like Robin Williams, who had this amazing life that people envied. People wanted to have his life. And yet he still experienced deep despair. Charles Spurgeon, One of the most famous preachers in Christianity had days he couldn't even get out of bed. This feeling of despair, it isn't going to be solved by success in life. It has to be dealt with right now, whether or not you have success. You might never have it, and yet you still need to experience how to feel, how to get through it right now. In verse 5, he continues that he lay down and he slept under a broom tree, but as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came and touched him and said, "Get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you." So he got up and he ate and he drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel for 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God. There he came to a cave where he spent the night. But the Lord said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah? What are you doing here? You, Elijah, who's just defeated all of these prophets. You, Elijah, who's like my greatest servant. You, who have done so much. You've seen amazing miracles. You've had ravens come and bring you food when you are hungry. What are you doing here? In a cave, in the dark, pulled away from everyone, thinking suicidal thoughts. What are you doing here, Elijah?" And Elijah replied, "I've zealously served the Lord God Almighty, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you. They've torn down their altars and killed every one of your prophets. I'm the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too. Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was the sound of a gentle whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak, and he went out and he stood at the entrance of the cave. And a voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And maybe like me, you've heard this story, and you wonder, well, why didn't God show up in the fire? But you see, God didn't need to show up in the fire because Elijah had already seen God move in an amazing, powerful way. He knew that God was in the fire. Why didn't God show in the earthquake? But Elijah had already seen God control nature. He'd seen God bring him food in crazy situations. Why was God not in the wind? Elijah didn't need God to show him signs of his bigness. He didn't need God to show him signs of his power. You see, God shows up in a whisper because it's only in a whisper that he can show how close he really is.
That's good, man.
Elijah didn't need to know how powerful God was in that moment. He needed to know how close God was. You need to know that the feeling of God being absent and distant is not a sign that he's far away from you or he's displeased with you.
Good, man.
When God is quiet, when God is whispering, that's a sign of his proximity. He's close. Imagine you walked and you stepped on a landmine and you lost a leg. Well, you would then be living life loving Jesus with just one leg. No one would come up to you and be like, "Hey dude, where's the leg? Like, where's your leg, man? I thought you were sincere about your faith. I thought you believed in Jesus. Where's your leg? Like, doesn't the Bible say that he makes all things new? Well, where's your faith? Where's your leg?" You'd be like, "Nick, can you please come and remove this guy? He is not welcome here. We do not want you in this place." You'd be like, "This guy he's an idiot." And yet some of us, we are psychologically walking through life with just one leg. and we are broken and we are hurting, but that is not a sign that God is displeased with you. And I believe that the healing is coming, but that God isn't going to just always do it every time overnight. Because you're not a machine, you're a human, and he's going to be tender with you, and he's going to be kind, and he loves you, and that it might take a while. We need to recognize that these kind of problems can't just be solved with go and read your Bible more. It's not a sign that God is absent, that you are hurting. God still loves you. He wants to see you whole. I sometimes think that, do you know the moments I love the most are the ones where I'm just feel so close to God. Has anyone had those kind of moments? You're worshiping and it's like God's just around you and it's phenomenal and you're on fire and you're excited, and these are brilliant. But you need to recognize that these are not what we need to judge our spiritual walk by. You know, just because you're having a high doesn't mean that God loves you more than when you don't feel those things. And if you start to judge your life by the highs and lows, you'll find that you're a slave to your emotions. And you'll always be chasing after those things. It's not a sign of spiritual maturity to be buzzing. It's actually a sign of spiritual immaturity. If you define your walk with Jesus by the emotional reaction of the moment, we have to look not at the outside situations, not at the emotional situations, but we need to recognize that God is close even when we don't feel like it. That he is still with us, and he is still for us, and he is still championing for us on our behalf. And Elijah, he answers again, and he says, he literally says exactly the same words back to God that he just said before. He replies and he says, I have zealously served the Lord God, but the people of Israel have broken their covenant. They've torn down your altars and they've killed every one of your prophets. I'm the only one left. And now they're trying to kill me too. When you have moments of depression and despair, you lose touch with reality. And you need to find perspective. And the hardest thing in these moments is these are the times when you least like somebody coming up to you and telling you how good your life actually is. You don't want to hear it. You're just like, shut up. I don't need to know that everything's going to be all right now. I'm just enjoying this moment of despair and frustration. And sometimes there's a part of us that kind of enjoys the feeling of depression. And yet these are the times when we most need somebody to come and say, do you know what? It is going to be okay. This is going to end. This isn't actually a cave, it's a tunnel. The best is still to come. It's going to get better. And we need people who are going to come and love us enough to bring us a little bit of perspective and tell us as it is. You see, Elijah, he says, I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. That's true. He has. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you. That's true as well. They've torn down your altars, and they've killed every one of your prophets. That's true. I am the only one left. No, you're not. I'm the only one here who is doing the right thing. That's not true. That's false. Now they are trying to kill me. It's not true. You're not the only one. I am the only one who's really making an effort here. I am the only one who's suffering. I am completely on my own in this. No one likes me. No one loves me. Everyone's talking about me behind my back. You're not. It's not true. These are things that we say to ourselves and they're not true. We need people around us who will come and tell us that these aren't truths. That God is for you. That he is close to you. That this emotional experience isn't a sign that he's against you, and it's not a sign that your community doesn't love you either.
Good, man.
You need to get perspective.
It's good, bro.
You need to find people who are going to breathe life into you, who are going to build you up, who are going to speak love, and they're going to speak hope. And so I just want to say now some really practical things that I've taken from this passage. If you're struggling with mental health, if you're struggling with depression, And I want to share them with you. I'd encourage you to write them down. And these might be something which are really helpful for you, or they could be something that's going to help you speak to somebody else. And I've taken them all directly out of the text. So these come straight out of the passage. And as I share, I'll just share them directly to you as if you're the one who's struggling with this today. And so there are 7 things I want to share with you. The first is you need to get some rest. I love that this is the first thing that God says to Elijah. He says, go to sleep. Get some rest. You need to take a day off. We've been talking about this together for like the last 7 weeks. The most disobeyed commandment in the entire Bible is to rest. You know, it's no good you being up till 2 a.m. watching The Walking Dead. It's no good you spending all this time on the Xbox. You've got to pull away. You've got to take some time off. You've got to refresh. You've got to find life again. Get an early night. Get some sleep. Rest. And the second thing he says to him is, get up and eat. You know, we talk a lot in the church about memorizing scripture. I think there's a verse that all of us can really memorize here. It's get up and get some food. We can all come around that verse, can't we? I love it. You know, like if it were me, I'd be like, stop being so lazy. You need to sort your life out. You need to read the Bible more. I'd start preaching. God doesn't do that to him at all. You know, God says, get up, go Krispy Kremes. Get some donuts. Yes. You know, you need to get some breakfast. Yes. You need to eat. You need to remember that you are a human being. Yeah. And you have a body. And you need to look after it. Get up, get some food. And then number 3, you need to get some perspective. God tells him, come out of that cave. Come to the entrance and look out at everything around you. I know we're English. And I know that we don't like those people who are bubbly and positive and they're full of life and they're really irritating all the time. But when you are in these moments, those are the people you need. You need the people who are going to bring you life. They're going to change your perspective. They're going to show you outside the cave. They're going to point to the world in all of its wonder and its glory. And they're going to show you all the good things that God has done. You know what? Your kids, they're going to get through it. Your marriage is going to keep on moving forward. This probably isn't the end. The best is still to come in your life. Even when you can't see it, Jesus is still working and he is going to make it all right. Yeah. You need to come out of that cave. You need to change your environment. And you need to get some perspective. Number 4, you need to get help. I love in Josh's interview, the one thing that he said, his one point was, get help. It's okay to go to a counselor. It's okay to go to a doctor. It's okay to go and say, I need some help. If this despair, this depression is lasting a long time, you need to go and get help. So often we just hope that these weights that we're under are just somehow going to disappear, but they might not. And there's no point you just staying and waiting because you're embarrassed or you're ashamed. You can get help. There are people who are trained and equipped to help you get through this. We need to tell people to get help. Number 5, you need to get around people. You need to get around community. You notice that God says to Elijah, get up, get some food, come out of that cave, and get towards some people. He says there's somebody else that I want you to go and meet. There's a young guy, you'll like him, his name rhymes with yours. You'll get mixed up sometimes. His name's Elisha, your name's Elijah. Preachers will keep on getting it wrong, but it's okay because there's no shame here. But I want you to go and find him. I want you to go and invest in him. I want you to go and get around people again. You need to be around people. God has created you to be connected with other humans. Yeah, he says, go, this guy's going to be your best friend. He's going to be your buddy. And I want you to pour your life into him. Yeah. Everything that I have given you, I want you to show him, because this isn't the end for you, Elijah. This cave is not your destiny. It's not your destination. This moment isn't going to be what defines your life. There is the greatest ahead of you. I need you to go and I need you to invest. I need you to pour into somebody else, because your legacy hasn't yet come.
That's so good.
You need to get around people.
Good, man.
When we struggle, you need to find people that you can pour your life into. Find youth, find kids, invest, share, experience love.
That's good, bro.
You need to be around people.
Yeah.
Point number 6, I'm going to ask the band to come up, is that you need to get back to work. You need to get back to doing something productive. You need to start building something with your life. You were created to do something meaningful. And part of your recovery will be the moment when you start doing something that really matters. Doing something that you believe in. Doing something which is going to help other people. You need to start serving. You need to start giving of yourself. When you start working, when you start being fruitful again, these habits and these practices will help to bring you through. And then finally, number 7, you need to listen to the voice of truth.
Yeah.
You need to listen to the voice of truth. When Elijah was listening to the voice of God, he was riding high. He was killing it. He was loving life and everything was going well. But the moment he listened to that voice of Jezebel, his life fell apart. And it came crashing down. I want to ask you, whose voice is it that you've been listening to? If you've been here today and you've been listening to my voice and you don't feel like you're needed, you don't feel like you're wanted, you don't feel like loved, I want to ask you, whose voice have you been listening to? Because the more you get to know Jesus, and the more you listen to his voice, you discover that you are wanted, you are loved, you are needed. You need the voice of truth. This is why I think the church is so important. And I think it's why it's so important for us to get it right, so that people who walk into our community, they don't just feel judged. They don't just feel frustrated. They don't just feel on the outside, but that they come and that they know that this is a place where they are loved. They are welcomed. They are accepted. We need everybody to know that we need them. That they have a place here and we need them here with us. We need to be the kind of community where people come in and they feel welcomed and they feel accepted and they don't feel like we just stick baggage on them, but that they know that God is for them. And even if they don't get that full healing straight away, even if it's a journey, that he is with them and that he wants the best for them. We need to be that voice of truth for a world who so often doesn't have it. If you're here and this is something that you've been struggling with, I just want to say directly to you today that we love you, that we need you, and that you'll get through this. That we believe that the best is still to come for you. And we want to help you. So let us know. Speak up and share. We're going to have a time of worship now. And during this, we're going to have some guys down here on the side, Josh and Emma. I think Helen as well is around. And if there's anything within this that's touched you and you'd like some prayer, I'd love to ask you to come down. And during the worship time, come down and receive some prayer. If there's anything else you need prayer for as well, then they would love to pray with you. But don't leave here today and not receive prayer. Don't leave here today and think, I'm just going to hope that this is going to somehow change. I'm just going to hope that this is going to get better. Let today be the first day that you make some positive steps towards the freedom that God has for you within this.